on this Sunday edition of the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, your host for today. It's kind of interesting, the story that we have on InfoWars. It's not something that we're unaccustomed to. The fact that you have people attacking free speech. We see them doing this in every way possible. We had Jake Lloyd go out and do a report. They grabbed the microphone out of his hand. They've done that to us at Planned Parenthood protests where we're talking about the genocide of Planned Parenthood. This is the left's tactic. I mean, as we were there holding up signs of little babies and saying, Black lives do matter. And this has been planned as a genocide from the very beginning. They showed up to put black signs in front of our signs. They had nothing to say. They just didn't want us to say anything. Of course, you see it all the time on social media. I just had somebody troll me on something, and they didn't like what I had to say, so they said somebody needs to take away David Knight's Twitter account. They need to take the keyboard out of his hand. I retweeted it, and I said, well, you know, this is a typical response from the left. They don't want to debate you. They want to censor you. But, of course, it's going to get more violent. And what we're seeing in the UK is Tommy Robinson just walking down the street being singled out by 10 individuals with balaclavas on their head, covering up their face so nobody can see them, attacking him. And we have the clip at Infowars.com. I want to play you a little bit of this clip, just to give you an idea of what's going on. It's about a 20-minute clip, so we're not going to play it. And there's a lot of visual stuff here, so it's not appropriate for the radio. But let's play a little bit of that clip so you get a taste of what that is. This is the way the left reacts to people, the way they bully and target. I guess we could even say bully and harass people. We're a shoe tube to protect Tommy Robinson. They're not going to be there. Here's a little bit of that clip.
Come on, innit? You're not going to do it one-on-one, lads. You're not going to do it one-on-one. You're not going to do it one-on-one.
All right, these are guys with masks on, attacking a woman who is filming them, 10 of them, coming after Tommy Robinson, trying to take the camera away from her. Coming at him from the back, attacking him, knocking him down from the back, and jumping on him. But he gets up, starts fighting him, and he basically fights him off. Spoiler alert here, but he basically fights him off and then talks about it to other people. And the amazing thing about this clip to me,
I was still saying
right here.
Your mates run off. Your mates run off.
He's talking to the police.
He's run off. It's not nothing to worry about. No allegation. There's no allegation for me. It's not a deal with it. You cowards.
Yeah, he walks down to the police and said,
how many of them were there?
Your friends ran away.
And how did they do for 10 of them?
I'm not glad.
How did they do? How did they do? How did they do? Go on, you're not on camera, you're not on camera.
Listen, they didn't hold it up, I can't lie.
They did, did they?
No, they didn't.
He's asking some people there, how did I do?
10 lads.
Yeah, he had to fight off 10 people who were teaming up, attacking him from every angle because the police would not do anything. As he pointed out to the police, he said, your friends, your mates ran away.
I'm out. Go, officer. Yeah.
Go around the corner, mate.
Yeah, we'll go around the corner.
All right, and that's you can see the rest of that report at InfoWars. It's pretty amazing to me. But this is the tactics of the left, and this is the tactic of the police, who basically will not do anything. Absolutely amazing. They see a fight like that, they don't want to get in the middle of it. They just run away. We can expect that. And as we are going to talk in the show, we've now had the Florida governor sign a massive gun control bill. It's a $400 million gun control bill. There you go. Big spending Republican, anti-self-protection Republican, $400 million gun control bill from the Republican governor there, Rick Scott. Because, you know, you can't protect anybody unless you've got a uniform, right? We saw a lot of that, didn't we, at the Stoneman Douglas School that began all of this gun control movement in Florida. I just played at the top of the hour a video of Tommy Robinson being attacked by an Antifa gang of 10 guys wearing masks, of course. They're ashamed of what they do, and they should be ashamed. Bunch of cowards, 10 people attacking one individual, but he fought them off. Very compelling video. It's about 20 minutes long. I played a clip of it at the top of the hour when we didn't have our radio stations joining us. If you want to see that, you can see that at Infowars.com. Tommy Robinson attacked by Antifa gang. And it's important to understand what the tactics of the left are. And you can see it in that clip very easily. And, of course, afterwards, he walked over to a large group of police officers not far away who were just standing there doing nothing. And he said, hey, why didn't you guys help me? Oh, nothing to worry about, fella, and all this. And he says, your mates, your friends ran away when they saw this. Kind of like what we have seen with the cowards of Broward County, the sheriff's officers who would not go in. That wasn't the case with the police department. That was the case with the sheriff's department. See, just because you wear a uniform doesn't mean that you're a hero. Doesn't mean that you will protect other people. Doesn't mean that you'll put your life on the line. That certainly the police department did, not the county sheriff's office. And so you have different rules on different people. And the very fact that somebody is wearing a uniform doesn't make them a hero. You don't have to have a uniform to be a hero. We saw that in the Sutherland Springs church shooting. The guy who was the hero there had the gun that the left hates so badly, the AR-15, which they want to ban. That's got to be purged from the earth. We're going to wish that away into the cornfield. Never again, they say. Never again is the most naive thing I have ever heard anybody say. You can't say that about anything. Certainly can't say that about conflicts. We heard that after World War I. Maybe these high school students didn't get that in history. You know that war to end all wars? Well, it didn't actually do that, did it? You're never going to find a situation where we're going to change the nature of man. That's basically what they need to understand. It's in the nature of man. So the best we can do is make sure that good people that have been vetted, that are trained, are able to protect other people. But that's not what they're doing in Florida. We're going to get into gun control and how Florida has responded. The Republican governor acting like you would expect Hillary Clinton to act, spending $400 million, creating a new gun control bill. So here we have big spending, anti-Second Amendment, Republican rhino. Let's see, did I miss anything? Let's say big spending, anti-Second Amendment, anti-self-protection, Republican, quote-unquote Republican in name only, Rick Scott. And immediately the NRA has filed suit. So I'm going to tell you about that. And I'm going to give you an example of why Rick Scott is wrong in siding with the Democrats in this. We'll talk about that in a moment. We're also going to talk about Trumponomics. We're going to talk about the victory lap that he was taking in Pennsylvania as he's taking the stump trying to help a Republican in a congressional race that's coming up there in Pennsylvania. This is a very wise move politically, but it's the right thing to do. It's what President Trump campaigned on. And I think we're going to look back at this and we're going to talk about, instead of Reaganomics, we're going to talk about Trumponomics. And I think Trumponomics looks better than Reaganomics because it's not only a large tax cut, but it's also large cuts in regulation as well as economic nationalism, which was never a part of the Reagan recovery. So we're looking at something here that is far bigger than anything Ronald Reagan ever did. Now, he's making the same mistake on economics that Ronald Reagan did in terms of not cutting spending because the deficit is still continuing to go up. But it will be mitigated somewhat by economic growth. So I think we're going to be talking about Trumponomics, and instead of talking about the Reagan Democrats, we're going to be talking about the Trump Democrats when we get to the next elections. I think that is a big win. So we're going to talk about trade. We're going to talk about North Korea with President Trump. And in the second hour, it's the last hour of the show. I was thinking of 3-hour shows Typically, you can find me a 3-hour show every morning, 8 to 11 here at InfoWars. But today we have a 2-hour show. And in the second hour, we're going to be talking to Christian Saucier. He is the sailor who many of us were so upset about the fact that he was sent to jail for doing something that really wasn't a serious crime. As his defense attorney pointed out, this should have been taken care of with probation. It should have been taken care of by the military. There could have been some discipline for what he did. What he did was he took some pictures of where he had served. It was the lowest possible level of classification, confidential. And they basically hung him out to dry. This was a very vindictive move by the Obama administration, especially when you look at the FBI involvement and the involvement of the FBI director saying that even though Hillary Clinton had violated national security blatantly and continually at the highest level. I mean, you got 3 basic levels of classification: confidential, secret, and top secret. It doesn't take much of anything to have something classified as confidential. As a matter of fact, our government wants to classify everything as secret. Remember the memo that came from the Republicans? Remember when they declassified that? There was all this back and forth, and the FBI was saying, and other people in the Justice Department and the Democrats, you can't show that to anybody, President Trump. That's classified. And he says it doesn't give away anything important. It doesn't give away any methods. It doesn't expose any personnel. There's no reason for this to even be classified. They had it classified top secret. And yet this poor sailor was raked over the coals. He basically had been sent to prison for a year. They had him still under house arrest and on parole. And being a convicted felon was destroying his life. He couldn't get a job. And President Trump took that away. So we're going to talk to him. This is something that Trump tweeted about yesterday, Saturday, that he finally took this away. He had already served a year in time. This is just taking away the stigma that was going to follow him throughout life. And it's a great thing that President Trump did that. All right, let's take a look at some of the news here. We have, besides gun control in Florida, they want to exercise a little bit more control over the sunshine in the Sunshine State. They're now saying that they would like to adopt year-round daylight savings time. I think that would be a good idea. I mean, I really don't like the fact that they mess with the clock twice a year. You like the fact that you lost an hour last night? I don't. I don't like that at all. I think it's a very bad idea. I think they should call it Sunshine State Savings Time. They could go on their own time zone and say, the heck with the feds, nullify their daylight savings time. I'm all for nullification. I'm not with Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions out there saying, there's no such thing as nullification and secession. We settled that question a long time ago. Just go to Gettysburg and look at this stuff. And said, well, you can also go to Bunker Hill and Yorktown, because I'm sure that the British government said you can't leave the king at that time as well. Yeah, that's always going to be the case. But there is a peaceful method in our Constitution. It's called nullification. And people have already peacefully nullified a part of the unconstitutional war on drugs that Jeff Sessions likes so much. We have over 30 states, over 60% of the states have declared medical marijuana or just outright legalized it. That is nullification, folks. Marijuana is prohibited under the UN's, and it is the UN's drug schedule. The UN created that drug schedule, by the way, conservatives. Did you know that when you fight for the war on drugs, you're fighting for a UN agenda? Think about that. They created the 4 schedules. They put all the drugs in the 4 schedules. They did it 10 years before Nixon implemented the UN agenda verbatim for you. How's that? How's that? And we've been suffering under that now for a half a decade, and it hasn't helped any addiction, has it? But it has given us a lot of corruption. It has created a prison population that is greater in absolute numbers, let alone the percentage of the population, but greater in absolute numbers than any other country, even communist dictatorships here in America. And it has corrupted our law enforcement. It's corrupted our Constitution, our legal system. But it hasn't done anything to our addiction rate. Hasn't done anything to that. But I told you before we went to the break that I would tell you how Mother's Day gender-neutral cards that are now being proposed by some store in the UK. I don't know if this is a drugstore or a grocery store. It's Waitrose. Waitrose, I think is the way you pronounce that. But it's in the UK. And they're now putting out gender-neutral Mother's Day cards. It's going to require a completely new language if we go down this mentally ill path. And, of course, they've already got a completely new language for us. I'll tell you about that in just a moment. But I told you before we went to the break that I would tell you how these gender-neutral Mother's Day cards relate to T-Rex, Rex Tillerson in Africa. Why is he in Africa? Well, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the beginning of this. Mother's Day cards, gender-neutral. They say they're going to broaden out, no pun intended, they're going to broaden out the mothers who the cards can go to. And so they have Happy You Day cards in the Mother's Day section. The word mother does not appear. Now, you might think that that's silly, but it's really not funny, folks. We have schools that have been working for quite a long time, seriously, working on getting rid of the terms mother and father. They said they were hateful terms. You can't have the terms mother and father. You have to understand at what a fundamental level these people want to destroy our society. They don't want to just get rid of the Christopher Columbus statues. No. They don't want to just get rid of Western civilization. They don't want to just purge Christianity. They want to impose upon us a kind of gender insanity, if you will, a new kind of birth control. I mean, we have, this is a brave new world that they're trying to operate here. We've got sperm counts that are crashing because of toxins in the water and the food and so forth. But it's also this kind of insanity where they're trying to stop all kinds of natural procreation. It's an attack on the family. It's an attack on everything that the basis of our culture. Let me tell you something. The basis of our society is not government. How about that? What is the basis of our society? Is it the individual? I'm a libertarian, but it's not, the basis of our society is not an individual. The basis of our society is the family. The family. That is why they have to make Mother's Day cards, no longer Mother Day cards or Father's Day cards. But they're not just coming after the Father's Day cards because they are perhaps too toxically masculine. No, they're coming after mothers. And they have cards like 2 moms are better than 1, or Dad, thanks for being the most amazing mom. These are some of the cards that these people are putting at the store in the UK. But let's take a look at some of the other things that these trans activists are doing. I mean, we've seen this many times. Remember Justin Trudeau when he told that young questioner, don't say mankind. And then after everybody called him on the insanity, he said, I was just joking. Well, was Justin Trudeau joking when he was very happy the fact that back in February, that the Canadian national anthem had its lyrics changed so that they would be gender neutral instead of in all thy sons command, in all of us command. And he tweeted out at the time, this bill to make O Canada gender neutral passed 3rd reading in the Senate tonight. Another positive step towards gender equality. In all of us command, he does hashtag. And then you can take a look at how this insanity plays out in college campuses, because that's where most of this stuff is being taught. You send your kids away for what you think is going to be an essential part of their career. It's going to give them an advance in terms of earning a wage. Well, to some degree, and to some degree with some degrees, and other degrees you don't get any advantage. But what they do is they load them up with debt, and they cover them with this kind of insanity. Look at what campus reform has uncovered. At Kennesaw State University, the LGBT Resource Center has produced a new pamphlet that has 7 different gender-neutral pronouns, things like ni, vi, a, z. I don't even know how to pronounce the difference of pronouncing ze and xe. I don't even know. And I'll give you an example of what some of their sample sentences sound like. It sounds like you got a speech impediment. Here's one example. Refer to a student who identifies as ni. One could say, ni laughed. That is Nears. What is this, Clockwork Orange? Yeah, it is. Very well, little brother. Yeah, they got a whole new language that they're creating, and you better understand what they're doing. Yeah, they and their droogs. This is what they're trying to impose upon us. It is a kind of insanity that they're putting on us. I remember we had Corporal Klinger in MASH all those years, trying to get a Section 8 so he could get out, dressing as a woman so they would say he was crazy. That's what Section 8 is. They knew that he didn't really mean it, but these people really mean it, and now we've got a Pentagon that is bringing in transgender troops because, and they're going to burden that institution with that insanity, as well as burden the taxpayer with their operations that they want to do. There he is, Corporal Klinger. See, sometimes the stuff starts out as silly, and sometimes they put it out there as funny, but you better understand they're deadly serious about this stuff. We can laugh at it, but they're deadly serious about it. Now, let's go on to the reactions, because I want to get down through the North Korea stuff to get to the link between the transgender insanity that we're seeing here with Mother's Day and the transgender insanity that we're seeing with the State Department in Africa. And Rex Tillerson is right at the center of that. So let's start here with reactions to the peace talks with North Korea. As I pointed out on Friday, at the beginning, there was a lot of praise. Erin Burnett said, wow, after she talked to a panel of 6 or 8 people, she said, if this really happens, and if President Trump pulls us through, he'll go down as a great president. No question about that. You can't question that. And she was being honest. And that was what happened at the beginning. And then everything changed. And even people on MSNBC, and of course, Chris Matthews, when he was looking at President Trump's moves to protect the steel and aluminum industries, but especially the steel industries, Chris Matthews, who's from Pennsylvania, said this is going to be a big win for President Trump. He said this is a cultural touch point because people understand that their society is being destroyed, just as they understood that Obama and Hillary Clinton wanted to destroy the economies and the manufacturing base of the coal industry in West Virginia and other places like that. The steel industry and the manufacturing industry, and it is much broader than just steel. We have seen the establishment Republicans and Democrats under the mantle of open trade eviscerate our economy. You want to talk about a trade war? The Chinese and the globalist shills, I guess we could call them quislings here in America, have been bombing our economy, our factory, our manufacturing base. They've been bombing it for 50 years. It's a 50-year war against us. And it's about time we wake up and understand that we're not going to let this continue happening. Understand it was his being the bad cop, South Korea being the good cop. They're bringing Kim Jong-un to the table. But of course, Rachel Maddow cannot allow that is a good thing. She's got to show herself to be nothing but a partisan hack, because who other than a partisan hack would try to pretend that denuclearizing North Korea is not a good thing? And so I want to play you a clip of Rachel Maddow and how she responded to this. I mean, even the people on CNN, at least for a while, at least the people on CNN said, hey, this would be really good if we could stop this guy who is lobbing missiles over Japan and setting off one nuclear test after the other. This guy is really dangerous. He's looking for attention. Wouldn't it be a good thing if we could stop that by just giving him a selfie with President Trump? Is that all it takes to give this guy the attention that he wants and then take away his nuclear toys? I think that'd be a great thing. But Rachel Maddow is not really so sure. Here's what she has to say.
You might imagine another president in this circumstance. Kim Jong-un makes a request. Do you want to meet? You might think like another president in this circumstance. You could imagine a president asking himself or herself, why has no other American president ever agreed to do this?
Good question.
Why
I've asked that.
Why has no sitting American president ever met with a leader from North Korea?
Yeah, good question.
Why has that never happened in all the decades North Korea has existed as a nation? Why hasn't any other president ever done? Should I take that to mean that this might be a particularly risky or even an unwise move? See, I think that's how most presidents would approach the idea of a personal presidential meeting with the North Korean dictator. I think a lot of people probably suspect tonight that those are not the kinds of questions that this president asked himself before agreeing to this meeting. But this is the president we have, and he said yes to North Korea. The New York Times tonight headlining this breaking news as, quote, a breathtaking gamble.
Oh, wow. And this is the president that we have saying yes to North Korea. She tries to portray it as us saying yes to North Korea. You know who said yes to North Korea, Rachel? All your Obama and Clinton and State Departments that enabled these people. How about the fact that you had the guy that you love so much, President Obama? You fawned over him, didn't you? This is newsbusters.org points out that Rachel Maddow fawned over President Obama when he said yes to the North Koreans. That was a good thing because it was President Obama, wasn't it, Rachel? That's what a hopeless, smarmy, snarky hack she is. Just disgusting to watch her there. I mean, lying through her teeth. She had said when Obama pushed for the Iran nuclear deal, she said, it's the major foreign policy achievement, not only of this presidency, but of the American generation. That's right. It was a foreign policy achievement, but not for America's benefit, for the Iranian benefit. It's amazing. You might think, she said, why has no other American president ever agreed to do this? That's the right question, but she gives the wrong answer. She said, should I take it to mean that this might be particularly risky or even an unwise move? Let me tell you what is unwise. Is to just sit there and let these people continue because obviously he is willing to do anything. What is going to happen, Rachel, if in some of these moves where he lobs missiles over Japan, if it actually hits Japan, people are going to be, they're going to have to respond to that then. You think it'd be a better thing to have a war, I guess. So you have an MSNBC, another host, says, well, it's definitely risky. So one of the things this would do, if we have a picture of Kim Jong-un and President Trump standing next to one another, this actually achieves one of Kim Jong-un's long-standing and his father's goal, which is to elevate North Korea. So that's the risk. That's the risk. We cannot lose our prestige by having our president take a selfie with the North Korean president. That is what MSNBC, that's their desperate attempt to try to say that this is a bad idea to talk to them. No, it'd be much better, wouldn't it, MSNBC, to just allow this little dictator to continue his nuclear program, his missile program, until he shoots a missile at Guam or lands one on Japan, and then we have the whole area erupt into war. Oh, that would be much better. Let's take the advice of the hacks at MSNBC. To me, that's a small price to pay. And we've had Michael Malice, who spent a lot of time in North Korea, say, this guy just wants attention. Let's give him a little bit of attention if we can denuclearize a place. There is no risk involved in this. Understand that the deal that has been announced is that nothing is going to change in the sanctions until they have the meeting. And unless he denuclearizes, nothing is going to change. He is still going to be under siege with the largest military in the world pointed at his country. He has nothing to gain but to denuclearize at this point. But then we got another hack, another Democrat hack. This is Tommy Vitor. He is someone who worked with Obama. He was Obama's former National Security Council spokesman. And he tweets out, why would the Trump administration announce this like it's some kind of accomplishment? It's a conversation with a homicidal dictator, not an invitation to the Met Gala. Really, really. So the reason he would do this, Obama, national security spokesman, Obama left us with a lot of national security, didn't he? We don't have secure borders. We don't have a secure situation with North Korea or with Iran, anybody else. But really the answer is to disarm them, not to arm them like you and the Clintons did with Iran and China and others. I mean, that's what the Democrats have done. Dan McLaughlin of National Review came back and pointed out that his boss had spent his time going to Havana, Cuba, and palling around with the president there, who had run communist death squads. That's Raul Castro, who is still there. Said, in fact, the 2-year anniversary of their super awkward handshake is coming up later this month. How about that? This is the hypocrisy of the left. But I want to take a moment here with Rex Tillerson, because the top of Drudge yesterday, it said Tillerson is sick. He's not going to meet with anybody in Kenya. And then later on, he's coming out and saying, I'm feeling a little bit better. Getting better. I think what he was sick of is being left out of the loop. As I reported this on Friday, they said, this is AP, saying several Pentagon officials had said shortly before the announcement that they had no knowledge of what the South Koreans planned to announce. So the South Koreans came in and talked to President Trump privately. Then they came out and announced that President Trump and Kim Jong-un would be meeting to talk about denuclearizing North Korea, and that nothing was going to change unless they did that, and until they did that after the meeting. But at the same time, they reported that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who was traveling in Africa, had just hours before that announcement said that the U.S. was, quote, a long ways, unquote, from direct talks. That was Tillerson in the dark continent. The secretary is not feeling well, he said the next day, after a long couple of days working on major issues back home, such as North Korea, and he has canceled his events for the day. So think about that. They managed to put that in the statement, saying he's kind of sick, because of that North Korea stuff, that he was left out of the loop in. To me, I'm hoping this is what the coded message is. I am sick of this job. I hope he is sick of this job. I hope he joins Gary Cohn. I think there's a door at the White House with a label on it. It's a door that leads out of the White House. It's an exit. And hopefully there is a door there that somebody in the White House has put a sign on that says, globalist enter here. because I would like to see him join his fellow globalist, Gary Cohen, and just get out. This is a guy who has fought President Trump. He's been wrong on every issue. And even when you look at what we knew about this guy before he came in, when I heard that he was being rumored to be the Secretary of State, I said, why? Why in the world would we have this guy? $600,000 investment to mess with their gender. It's not just here in America, and it's the State Department, and it's Rex Tillerson, and he has a history of doing this. I'm going to get back to that. I'll wrap up the connection between Rex Tillerson and gender-neutral Mother's Day cards in just one moment. But before I do, real quickly, I want to let you know about the sales that we have at InfoWarsStore.com. It's part of our Operation Paul Revere 2018. We have extended this stuff because, you know, it's very important for you to purchase from us directly. We don't live by ads that are sold for Big Pharma on our site like CNN does, but they're trying to shut us down. They think they can shut us down by getting YouTube to take our videos off, to take our channel off, to demonetize our channel. That's not how we make our money. We make our money through the products. We fund this operation through the products that we sell at our site. And of course, we have some of the finest products that you're going to find that will help your health as well as the health of your family. Natural products that we don't have to, when I tell you about these products, I don't have to spend 30 seconds rapidly running through a list of dangerous side effects like heart disease, stroke, and all these other things that you typically hear on the Big Pharma commercials on CNN and other cable news outlets. But let me give you an idea of some of the sales here, because we got sales throughout the site, 30 to 80% off, plus free shipping. We have Super Male and Female Vitality, 50% off. Let me tell you some of the other popular products we have at 50% off. We got Pollen Block, Immune Wall to help your immune system naturally, Real Red Pill, Biome Defense, True Whey Protein, Prebiotic Fiber, that is fiber plus probiotics. We also have InfoWars Life Select products. That's our storable food products, 40% off. Our apparel, some apparel is at 80% off. And we have the Aegis Armor Backpack insert, 20% off. As I said once before, and I got singled out by one of these leftist news outlets for saying it. Remember the time the guy took first he went to the FBI office in Alaska and said, I've got voices in my head telling me to shoot people. I said, oh, that's nice. Have a nice day. We're not going to do anything about it. And they got on a plane and he flew to Florida and he started shooting people up with his pistol that he managed to get through security. Started shooting people up in the airport. And I said, this is the state of our security, our TSA. As much as they harass you, they don't do anything to protect you. I said, at the very least, put an armor backpack insert into your backpack and take it with you. So you at least got a little bit of something to hide behind. If all you can do is just shelter in place, at least you can have something that's going to stop a bullet. I got called out for that. I said, they said, look at this. This guy is trying to profit off of a disaster here. And I said, I'm not trying to profit. I'm trying to help people to defend themselves. That's what we talk about when we say a win-win situation. If we've got a solution that's going to help you to defend yourself when the government refuses to do so, they didn't get that guy's gun out of his hand. They didn't do anything when he complained about voices in his head. They're not going to do anything to protect you. Maybe you realize that by now. And if you have, take things into your own hands, and you can get select food to store for a disaster. You can get things to help you to fight the toxins that are in your food, the environment, and you can also, filter your water. Do a lot of things like that. Why is that a bad thing? I don't know why the left wants to call us out on that. But let's finish up with Rex Tillerson. As I just pointed out, he had, just hours before this happened, said we're very, very long away from any kind of talks with North Korea. And then it was announced that it was happening. And this is while he's in Africa, in the dark continent. And he was going to be he was in Nairobi on Friday, and he was going to have a ceremony that was going to mark 20 years after Al-Qaeda had bombed the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing 224 people. See, Al-Qaeda and Islamic Jihad terrorism is all over Africa. And you got Kenya on the west. You've got Nigeria on the eastern side of Africa, but it's everywhere. But Rex Tillerson is not so concerned about that. As a matter of fact, we got another neocon, H.R. McMaster, who can't even bring himself to say the term radical Islam. And so to save face, and I really do hope he's not going to stick with this. I hope Rex Tillerson sees this as a personal affront and leaves like Gary Cohn did when he lost the debate on protecting our economy. Gary Cohn wanted to continue to sell us out to China and other countries. And when President Trump said, no, we're not going to do that, he said, all right, fine, you want my advice, I'll leave. Well, we don't want or need Rex Tillerson's advice, and we don't want or need his advice on the climate, and we don't want or need his advice on what the causes of terrorism are. The State Department under Rex Tillerson has spent $600,000 to explore gender identities of boys and men in Kenya. And when I first saw this announcement where he was out of the loop, and of course now he's saying, oh yes, I was very busy with that, and I've been in the, he said on Friday, he said, this was not a surprise in any way. After having said we're a long ways away from talk a couple of hours before, then President Trump does it and he says, well, this wasn't a surprise in any way. And then the next day he goes, I'm sick. I can't go to any meetings. Hopefully he's sick of being out of the loop. But this is what I'm sick of. I'm sick of our State Department continuing the Obama-nation policies of Barack Obama and trying to do gender confusion, not just in this country, but in other countries as well. And let me tell you how this is coming out. I reported this when this was announced back at the end of January. And I haven't really seen anybody talk about this. The State Department spending $600,000 to explore gender identities. They say that they suggest that the ideals of masculinity in Kenya are the cause of terrorism. No, it's not Islam. See, it's that toxic masculinity that needs to be taken down in Kenya. And so Rex Tillerson's State Department is going to spend $600,000 because the enemy is masculinity, not Islam. They said gender is increasingly recognized as an essential aspect to understanding and to countering violent extremism throughout the world, said the State Department, spending $600,000 of your money. They said men and boys are disproportionately recruited by and join terrorist groups and carry out terrorist operations. So therefore, terrorism is male. It's not Islamic. It's a male thing. Except that they have female terrorists as well, and they have female suicide bombers as well. But let's not pay any attention to that, says the State Department under Rex Tillerson. In Kenya, they said, there currently exists no CVE, and that's their countering violent extremism. There's no CVE programming dedicated to the role of gender of boys and men and vulnerability to violent extremism. So Tillerson's State Department lays the blame on terrorism, not of terrorism on male gender issues, not on things like Boko Haram or Islam. And of course, Boko Haram is in Nigeria. He was just in Nigeria as well. Maybe he's selling them the same gender confusion. Let me tell you, Rex Tillerson has been into gender confusion from the very beginning. He was head of the Boy Scouts. What did he do to the Boy Scouts? The same thing that I guess he thought that the Boy Scouts were too toxic masculine because he pushed the idea that they would have homosexual scouts as he was head of the Boy Scouts. And then he pushed for homosexual scout leaders at the Boy Scouts. And then, keeping with his example, as he left, the Boy Scouts then began pushing for transgender scouts. This is the Rex Tillerson who now at the State Department is trying to bring gender confusion to the poor people of Kenya, as if that was their problem. You see, in Nigeria, where they have the same problems as they do in Kenya, I just talked about how they had mass bombings in Kenya and so forth. It is Al-Qaeda, it is radical Islam, it is jihadism. Boko Haram literally means the people committed to the Prophet's teachings for propagation and jihad. Now, Boko Haram is really just the nickname. What it means is Western education is haram, is forbidden. And that's why they go in and capture all of these. They just captured a whole nother group of young girls who were studying and getting educated at Western schools. Can't have that. Can't have that. So especially women. Can't have women. But that's toxic masculinity as the State Department and Rex Tillerson see it. So it's not a problem with Islam. It's a problem with toxic masculinity. So what they need is some gender confusion. And who are the people that join Boko Haram? and Nigeria? Well, they typically come from university students, kind of like Antifa over here. Those are the people that join the group. We're also going to be talking about the Trumponomics and the big win that President Trump has had with that. This is as big as the tax cut, folks. And make no mistake about it, the Chinese have been in a trade war with us for decades. And even as we passed massive tax and regulation cuts, as President Trump and the Republicans passed that, the response from the European Union was, this is something that is unfair advantage for the American people. And they threatened to take us to the World Trade Organization. They said, nothing is off the table. We are going to appeal to the World Trade Organization because of America's domestic tax and regulation cuts. See, they're not going to cut their taxes. They're not going to cut their regulations. They're strangling their economy, and they're strangling the sovereignty of the individual countries that they have taken over. And they were going to fight us on that. And so this is not the beginning of the trade war. That, if you want to say the trade war started, well, the trade war started with the tax cuts that Wall Street loves so much. But Wall Street doesn't love economic nationalism. Main Street does, however, especially Main Street and the states that Trump needs to win. They absolutely do love it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and people's reactions to it and what it really means. I just want to finish up with what I ran out of time to say as we went to break. When we look at what the big picture is here with Rex Tillerson, they spent with the State Department $500,000 to go into Kenya and to misidentify the problem, to tell the people there that all the terrorism is because of toxic masculinity, and you need to feminize these boys like we're trying to feminize the Boy Scouts under Rex Tillerson, to say that we're going to have homosexual scouts, we're going to have homosexual leaders, and then we're going to have transgender scouts. That's been his agenda. That's been the agenda of the establishment. Rex Tillerson is a globalist. And so they misidentify the problem, spend $500,000 to do that. And if they can move people away from seeing that the real problem is Islam, then they'll be able to sell them $500 million worth of arms from the military-industrial complex. See how they can turn LGBTQ into MIC, the military-industrial complex? It's just that simple. It's just that simple. It is a way to confuse and to destroy and to divide people. But let's talk about somebody else in the White House staff here. White House Chief of Staff Kelly versus, I think, one of the best appointments that President Trump has made, Scott Pruitt at the EPA. Now, one of the ideas that Scott Pruitt had was to have a debate. He's at the EPA, and he said, let's have a public debates that would challenge climate change science. And Michael Kelly now has shut that down. He said, no, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. No, it's a great idea because they can't win that debate. We started the program in the last hour with 10 masked individuals, probably identifying with Antifa, attacking Tony Robinson in the UK. 10 against 1. They had masks on. They hit him from behind. They circled him so they could hit him from every different angle. But he fought him off anyway. And that really is a metaphor for what would happen if we had a climate change debate. Let me tell you something. They've got all the quote-unquote talking heads and pundits and people with scientific authority to argue with people. Yeah, there's a clip of what happened with Tony Robinson. But they've got all these people. They load up the debate on CNN and elsewhere, but they can't land a punch. In Parkland, Florida, the Stoneman Douglas School, and talk about what the Republican governor did here and how the NRA has responded. And we're also going to talk about Trumponomics. And at the bottom of the hour, we have joining us Christian Saucier, the sailor who was just pardoned by President Trump yesterday. I was so happy to see that. What a travesty that was. What a travesty it was. And President Trump had in the past tweeted out that it was a travesty. It was hypocrisy to let Hillary Clinton get away with multiple felonies of the most classified documents. I mean, the stuff that she had, just as this fellow who took pictures, those pictures did not go through a formal classification process. They said if you take pictures anywhere within a submarine, it's going to be classified. Now, at the lowest level of classification, at confidential, but nevertheless, they would be born classified, is what we'd say. Now, do you think that Hillary Clinton's conversations with foreign leaders are born classified? If a picture of a bunk in a submarine is born classified, do you think that her conversations with foreign leaders are born classified? Of course they are. As a matter of fact, they're above top secret. Above top secret. But of course, the FBI director said he was going to let her go. Said she'd committed all these felonies. I can still remember listening to that. I was sitting there with my wife, and he's talking about these, he's not lying to people. He said, yeah, she violated national security. I said, I can't believe this. Hillary for prison. He's going to do it. And then he did something even more unbelievable. He said, but we're not going to do anything about it. And then he doubled down on the unbelievable hypocrisy and said, but don't you try this at home. And then shortly after that, they went after Christian Saucier. So we're going to talk to him today. He's going to be joining us and telling us what this means for his life. I'm glad to see that President Trump noticed this and has done the right thing for him. But before we get into gun control, I just want to talk a little bit about Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, or as James Woods called her, Liawatha. I talked about this on Friday, and now everybody is talking about the fact. On Friday, I had the news that the Massachusetts Berkshire Eagle, a newspaper, wrote an editorial and said, hey, Elizabeth Warren, you can get a DNA test for only $99. It's not a lot of money, and you can put this to rest one way or the other. Are you or are you not of Indian descent? Because you use that to get a leg up at the university there, to get a job that you weren't going to get if you were white. You claimed Indian heritage so you could not only do cultural appropriation, but take a job that people of your ilk had reserved for people of different races. They got different racial slots there and different kinds of discrimination depending on who you are. And so you identified as an Indian for those purposes. And you tried to sell that. And so, do a DNA test and prove to us that you really are an Indian. It's only $99. If you can't afford it, we'll pay for it. How about that? All you have to do is spit in a cup. It's not even an intrusive process. Well, I talked about that Friday morning. And again, if you want to follow my program, it's Monday through Friday, 8 to 11. You can follow Real News with David Knight. Well, she came back over the weekend and said she's not going to do it, essentially. She doubled down and said, when asked, again, at a press conference whether she would take the DNA test, she said she's going to hold on to the folklore of her parents' love story. She said, my mother and daddy were born and raised in Oklahoma. And she gives this long story. I'll play this story for you that she had. But you know what? As I heard her story, ask yourself, if maybe she didn't hear this from her mother and father, maybe, when she was younger, there was a top 40 novelty hit called Running Bear. And maybe that just somehow kind of worked its way into her psyche. Maybe that's going to be her excuse next. But here's what Elizabeth Warren said at the Pocahontas press conference.
I have to ask you, because I cover the White House and I hear the president going after you from time to time, referring to you as Pocahontas. I know recently you were speaking about your Native American heritage. Does that get under your skin when he does that? And do you want to run for president in 2020?
I am not running for president in 2020, but let me tell you my story. My mother and dad were born and raised in Oklahoma. My father fell in love with my mother when they were both still teenagers, and he was just head over heels over her.
I'm telling you, this is the Running Bear song.
Was bitterly opposed to their relationship because she was part Native American. And
so does that bother you when the president calls you Pocahontas? Do you think that he is being disrespectful to Native Americans when he does that? Doesn't that bother you because of your family's heritage?
Look, this is what I was trying to tell you. It's about
Jim Acosta,
my
fake
family's
news
story, because my family's story is deeply a part of me and a part of my brothers. It's what we learned from our parents. It's what we learned from our grandparents. It's what we learned from our aunts and our uncles. I went to speak to Native American tribal leaders, and I made a promise to them that every time President Trump wants to try to throw out some kind of racial slur, he wants to try to attack me, I'm going to use it as a chance to lift up their stories. And I'm going to do that right now by pointing out
She's identifying with them as a victim again.
Native women in this country have been the victims of sexual violence.
There we go. So she's a woman and an Indian. You can't really tell about that Indian thing, and she's not going to prove it to you. But, you know, she identifies. Remember, we're talking about the transgender insanity that's being foisted upon our kids by our educational system. That's the influence of the federal government on education in your school, in the school that you send your kids to. They're pushing this on the kids. They're doing it in kindergarten. They're telling these young kids they can pick whatever sex they want to be, whatever race they want to be. See, you can be Pocahontas too. You know, just like Elizabeth Warren, if you identify as being another race, you can be another race. Nobody can say anything about that. And they're telling that to the kids in kindergarten. So she just needs to wait until these kindergarten kids grow up and vote, and they'll be perfectly fine with that. Because if she identifies as an Indian, whether she is or not, then President Trump is racist to criticize her for trying to appropriate their culture and trying to appropriate the set-asides that they got from the Democrats. She comes in and says, oh, I can get that job because I'm an Indian. That's the issue here, folks. Never forget that the demagogue party that uses demographics all the time to divide us will use those same demographics to take their own privilege. You understand? She took that away from them, and she used it and claimed privilege to get her job at Harvard. I think it was Harvard that she was going to. But anyway, she used that job. Now they're saying the Democrats are pledging to limit superdelegates, but they don't really know how they're going to do it yet. And I find it interesting that Tom Perez, the current DNC chairman, says the party will, quote, improve the democratic process before 2020. Well, that implies that there's something wrong with what they did. Is there something wrong with what they did? I think there is, but they won't admit it. You're not going to find them admitting that. All right, let's take a look at gun control. And let's look at the shameful things that Republicans are doing here. Trying to identify as Democrats. I guess that you could say that Governor Rick Scott is now identifying as a Democrat in the same way that Pocahontas or Hiawatha is identifying as an Indian. You got Governor Rick Scott signing a $400 million big spending bill. There you go. That's identifying with Democrats. And then putting in gun control and confiscating guns from people who are peaceful, law-abiding citizens that are now going to be banned from having guns. This is what this carpetbagger in Florida is doing, Rick Scott, this rhino, Republican in name only. The bill also bans bump stocks. And as Breitbart points out, they weren't even used in the Florida school shooting. I'm not sure that bump stocks were used in the Las Vegas shooting either. None of that stuff really adds up. The sailor that President Trump pardoned yesterday, and it was an incredible miscarriage of justice. It was a double standard that we saw happen with this poor sailor who was sent to jail for a year for a couple of pictures that were born classified at the lowest level, confidential. But he's out now, and now he has had his future given back to him by President Trump. So we want to celebrate that with him, and we want to talk to him about that, have him give his perspective on what has happened and what that means in his life. So he'll be joining us in the next segment, anxious to talk to Christian Saucier. I want to finish up on gun control because we had the Florida governor sign a $400 million gun control bill. Let me tell you what is in this besides banning bump stocks, which were not even alleged to have been used in the Florida shooting. But it also, the bill was originally going to allow teachers to be armed on a broader basis. But they had to have that augmented. Governor Scott didn't want teachers to be armed for self-defense. He doesn't like that idea. He only wants people with uniforms. And, of course, where did he get that idea? Well, he got that idea from the Florida Education Association, the FEA. And they told him, they said, we urge you to honor your instincts. and to act to keep additional firearms from our schools unless they're in the hands of trained law enforcement personnel. You know, those official people in uniform that stood outside and did nothing? The sheriff's department, the people who were assigned to protect that school and did nothing, those uniformed characters. Meanwhile, you've got a real hero who had nothing but his body to put in the way of the bullets. And he was killed. Why don't we allow heroes? You don't have to wear a uniform to be a hero. And as we saw with these cowardly sheriff's deputies, you can wear a uniform and not be a hero. How about allowing people who have the disposition, the ability, who have been vetted, who have been trained, who are not afraid of guns, who understand what this is about? How about giving them some tools to protect themselves and to protect other people? See, the answer in this case is to allow more liberty, not take liberty away. That's the way we get a better society. It's always the right answer to add more freedom and to give freedom to law-abiding, responsible people, because they don't need to be the only people unarmed in the room. See, the crazy people, the criminal people, they're going to be able to get guns on the black market regardless. Do you think that your gun-free zones are any more real than your drug-free schools? No. Your schools aren't drug-free. Your schools aren't gun-free. And we need to allow people to at least defend themselves against guns. Anyway, as I go through this, the immediate response of the NRA was to sue Florida over the gun bill. Same day that Governor Scott signed it into law. They said, we filed a lawsuit against the state for violating the constitutional rights of 18 to 21-year-olds, said the NRA. And they said this blanket ban violates the fundamental rights of thousands of responsible law-abiding Florida citizens and is thus invalid under the 2nd and the 14th Amendments. Now, see, the 14th Amendment, that's kind of equal protection of the law. That's what we were talking to Christian Saucier about. It means that people in power don't get special privileges that the rest of us don't enjoy. But, of course, FBI Director James Comey isn't down with that idea. We got a lot of people in Washington that don't agree with that. The complaint says the law particularly affects young women. The NRA said females between the ages of 18 and 21 pose a relatively slight risk of perpetrating a school shooting. Have we had any school shootings of females between the ages of 18 and 21? Not that I'm aware of. They said, however, they are frequently the victims of that type of crime. And let me give you an example of this. This is a case that was highlighted by Reason Magazine. And they asked if this is a situation with, it's in Illinois, an Illinois woman who is a licensed firearm owner and looking to live in the East St. Louis Housing Authority's homes, tenants. And they said, well, sorry, you are licensed to own a firearm, but you have to prove to us that you don't have one before you can live here. You have to we have to take your firearms. Now, she has filed a complaint, and the plaintiff, they don't give her name. She's listed as Ms. Doe. She wants to keep the weapon for self-defense. Why? Because she has repeatedly been threatened. Well, she's been repeatedly threatened with her ex-boyfriend. And they say, according to the complaint, she's being actively threatened by her abusive ex-husband. Sorry, not boyfriend, but husband. A convicted murderer who, while on parole, visited shocking violence on her, including choking her into unconsciousness, beating her so severely that she bled internally, and threatening to kill her and her children should she end their relationship. So she's married to this guy. He goes to jail for murder. He gets out. She doesn't want to have anything to do with him. And then he chokes her into unconsciousness, beats her so severely she had internal bleeding, and threatens to kill her. Now, the government that doesn't keep this murderer in prison, who turns him out, is also going to unleash him on her without giving her any means of protecting herself. She wants to keep a weapon for self-defense, but she's been threatened with eviction by both the housing agency and its executive director unless she can verify that she doesn't keep a firearm at home. And her ex-husband was sent back to prison because of the assaults on her, where he beat her until she was bleeding internally. This murderer, convicted murderer, who got out on parole. I don't understand that. Why isn't this guy still in prison? He went back to prison because he beat her up, but now he's out again, and he has been threatening her again. But the government that won't keep this guy in prison, won't let her have a firearm to protect herself. That's what the NRA is saying about in Florida. They're saying you're taking away guns from law-abiding citizens 18 to 21, and you're taking away guns from women who are 18 to 21. Not going to allow them to protect themselves. Because, you got to have a man in uniform around to protect you. Well, the men in uniform aren't always there. Honest cops like Sheriff Clark will tell you. He told his own people, he said, look, we'll do everything we can to protect you, and we'll get there as soon as we can. But when you call the police, understand that you're going to have to be able to protect yourself until we can get there. And so he said, get a firearm and learn how to use it responsibly. And things are not going to get any better in Florida. The Democrats voted unanimously to take away the guns from the 18 to 21-year-olds, and they're not going to stop there. Democrat Representative Deutsch said the gun bill that Florida signed is, quote, merely the beginning of the response to Parkland. Yeah, he wants to ban all the guns, folks. We've reported this many times. You know that this is where they're headed. They have talked about this multiple times. We went to the gun control rally here in Austin. They had the mayor pro tem, the number 2 guy in the city of Austin, get up there, and they had one counter-protester of all these people who were protesting our ability to protect ourselves. One counter-protester with a sign up there. And we filmed that. We were there reporting on it. We filmed it. They all got around him. They started pushing him and shoving him. The former sailor that President Trump pardoned yesterday, we're very glad to hear that happen. I want to talk to him about what this means for his life, talk to him about the case. We've had him on the show in the past. But I want to play for you first the press conference where Sarah Sanders announced his pardon. Here's Sarah Sanders.
In other news today, the president has pardoned Christian Saucier, a Navy submariner. Mr. Saucier was 22 years old at the time of his offenses and has served out his 12-month sentence. He has been recognized by his fellow service members for his dedication, skill, and patriotic spirit. While serving, he regularly mentored younger sailors and served as an instructor for new recruits. The sentencing judge found that Mr. Saucier's offense stands in contrast to his commendable military service.
It also stands in contrast to the way Hillary Clinton was allowed to get away. This is what we're talking about, folks, when we talk about unequal treatment under the law, the favoritism. But I want to focus on the positive side here for at least a good while here and talk to Christian Saucier about what this means for his life. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, David.
We wanted to celebrate this with you because this is something to celebrate, and it's long overdue. Glad to see this happening. What does this mean for your life? Tell us, you served a year in prison, and you're out now. What has life been like after you got out of prison, and how is this going to change it, having a pardon?
Well, life's been pretty difficult. We had a lot of legal debt as a result of being taken to a civilian court instead of tried in the military, as I should have been, seeing as how I was active duty at the time. We had a lot of debt, and I went to prison for a year, and I couldn't work. My wife was the stay-at-home mom with our young child and her daughter. So it's been pretty difficult. Getting out of prison, I went on house arrest. I was allowed to work, and then I had to be home. I had an ankle monitor and a curfew. I applied to many jobs. I have a pretty diverse skill set. As a result of my training in the Navy operating nuclear power plants, but nobody would hire me. Fortunately, I was able to find work with a local waste management company and work as a trash collector. So I'm very grateful to them for hiring me and giving me lots of hours so that I can, make sure that my family's taken care of.
That is really sad, but this has been a load of garbage. Maybe in some of the garbage that you were hauling there, you could find some Democrat servers or something. But I'm glad to see that you got a pardon now, because that's going to change things. It's going to allow you to have the opportunity to use your experience in the nuclear field to get a good job. And I think it's going to make a difference for you, even in terms of it's going to change your discharge from dishonorable to an honorable discharge, will it?
It doesn't exactly do that. So that's a whole nother process we have to fight to get done. Now that, that I have a pardon, obviously it gives us some ground to stand on, but the whole military side of it, I still have an other than honorable discharge. So I still am not able to receive any of my disability benefits or any veterans benefits for that matter.
Oh, wow.
As a result of my 11 years of service. So that unfortunately hasn't changed. And it's, you know, like anything else, it's a fight we're willing to go ahead and go into. But it's going to take time. But
well, that's and let me give out that site that you've got here, because it sounds like you still need some help. And you've got a site there where people have been allowed to contribute to help you with your legal expenses. But people need to understand they still need to keep up some pressure to make sure that you get that honorable discharge. It's helpchrissaucier.com, and that's KRIS, HELP, KRIS, SAUCIER.com, helpchrissaucier.com. So people can look there and see what they can do to help you. But it is still a big help to have a pardon, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're so grateful. Yeah, I don't want to seem like a downer here. I mean, this is one of the few things in the past, 4 or 5 years that's actually been a positive for my family. I mean, we've had so much loss and lost so many things, and just a lot. And this has just been a huge, it's given us a lot more faith back in, at least one person in Washington, D.C. I don't know if the rest of them are going to do the right thing, but I can tell you President Trump is. And, and we've always supported him. He's a busy guy. He's had a lot of stuff going on. And for him to take the time to not only, give us our lives back, by granting me the pardon, but to take the time to call me and speak with me. I mean, we were just floored. It was just, what an amazing man. And we're just so fortunate to have him as our president. I mean, the guy, he truly cares about the people. He cares about the little people. I mean, that's what I am. I'm not politically connected like Hillary Clinton. I'm not, even like Joe Arpaio. I'm not somebody that's a well-known person like him. I'm just an average guy who, all I wanted to do was serve in the military and serve my country and be a good citizen. And here he's reached out and he's touched the lives of somebody like me and my family. And it's just amazing.
Well, your name is not a household name, hasn't been before, like Sheriff Arpaio. But so many of us knew about your case because it was such a glaring double standard for what was happening with Hillary Clinton. And I'm looking at the headline from the AP. Trump pardons Navy sailor who became a conservative talking point. Well, we were talking about the fact that Hillary Clinton wasn't being held to any kind of a standard, and you were being held to an incredibly strict standard. As you pointed out, this is something that should have been looked at within the military. You took a couple of pictures in the area that you worked at as a souvenir. This was something that was, as soon as you took those pictures, they were born classified, but at the lowest level, confidential. And we've heard over and over again that Hillary Clinton, well, she only had a dozen or so things that were classified that had the actual marking on it. But we know that with Hillary Clinton talking to foreign heads of state, that is born classified, and it is a level that is higher than top secret. And they want to pretend that that doesn't exist. That's the double standard that we saw.
Oh, absolutely. And, the fact, and what's most disgusting is that they want you to believe that she didn't commit a crime because she lacked intent to cause national harm. And I can tell you for a fact that was never a requirement in under the statute they charged me, which is, by the way, the very same statute they could have charged her, because I was not court-martialed. I was not held to a higher standard because I was in the military. I was tried in a civilian federal court by federal prosecutors from the DOJ, Obama's DOJ.
Yeah.
And I can tell you those same people, when Jim Comey said there's no prosecutor that bring a case against her, I can tell you that they brought a case against me for far less. And there was never a requirement. There was never any intention to cause national harm, and they never argued that point. Because they knew it would just been heinous.
Oh yeah, There's no way that a confidential classification of something is going to cause national harm. And
as a matter of fact, the definition for confidential is will cause little to no harm if released to foreign adversaries. Whereas top secret will cause grievous harm to the national security. So Hillary Clinton had top secret and top secret SCI, which is above top secret, which is only supposed to be viewed in a SIF on her personal server. It's a joke. It's a joke that, James Comey would even have the audacity to come out and tell the American people that, well, because she lacked intent, that she didn't break the law. I tell you, that's not a requirement for that statute. And anybody with a laptop or a phone can look that up and see that it's not a requirement. And gross negligence is the only requirement for breaking that law. you basically do what I did. So the law I was prosecuted under, unlawful retention of national defense information, which, oh, by the way, is exactly what Hillary Clinton did, means you have secure information on an unsecure device. I wasn't not allowed to have those pictures. I just wasn't allowed to have them on my cell phone, which was an unsecured device. Because I possessed a secret clearance, I was allowed to maintain secret information. But I had them on an unsecured device, so I broke the law. And I accepted responsibility for it, unlike Hillary Clinton. I went to court. I didn't go to trial. I pled guilty. I took my punishment. I didn't speak out about it until I'd served my time in prison. And as I was serving my time in prison and watching somebody who should be in prison run for the highest office in this country, President of the United States, I was utterly disgusted. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna wait until I get out, and I'm gonna speak out about this, because people should be upset. You know, it's bad enough, you know, for me that my family and I have been through this, but the average American citizen should be very distraught. Whether you're a conservative or a liberal really is null and void.
We're talking to Christian Saucier, the man who was pardoned yesterday by President Trump, who said, tweeted out yesterday, "Congratulations to Christian Saucier, a man who served proudly in the Navy, on your newly found freedom. No more ankle bracelet, no more pardon. No more parole, rather. He has now been pardoned." He says, now you can go out and have the life you deserve. So we want to talk to Christian. He graciously agreed to stay with us one more segment. We want to find out what his plans are now that he has had his record cleared to a large extent by President Trump's pardon. He pointed out that he still has the issue of VA benefits because of the discharge. Before we get back to Christian, real quickly, I haven't talked about our sales we have, because it's vital to keep InfoWars going, as we've got CNN and YouTube trying to shut down free speech and shut down InfoWars specifically. We had the Paul Revere 2018 specials that we have extended 30 to 80% across the board at our site, plus free shipping right now. We have some of our most popular products, 50% off. Here are some of those: Super Male and Super Female Vitality, Pollen Block. It's this time of year, folks, where your sinuses are under attack by pollen. 50% off of that. Immune Wall, 50% off. Real Red Pill, 50% off. Biome Defense, 50% off. True Whey Protein, 50% off. Prebiotic Fiber, 50% off. And our InfoWars Life Select Storable Foods, good for 25 years. Made in the U.S., non-GMO, and you can even reseal the packages after you've opened them to use them for another couple of days after you've broken that. But it's a great way right now, when it's 40% off, a great way to get your food set aside in case of emergency or in case of a massive spike in food prices. Who knows what's going to happen? It's an uncertain world. But we certainly do appreciate your support. And take a look at the sales that we have at InfoWarsStore.com. 30 to 80% off, plus free shipping. And that is store-wide at InfoWarsStore.com. All right, let's go back to Christian. And Christian, as we'd seen back in January the 2nd, we had President Trump tweeting out at that point in time, saying Crooked Hillary's top aide, Huma Abedin, has been accused of disregarding basic security protocol. She put classified passwords in the hands of foreign agents. No problem for any of that, right? He said, remember the sailor's picture on a submarine? Jail, the deep state Justice Department must finally act. Also on Comey and others. So I personally, I can't imagine how you felt. Because when I saw James Comey do that, it made my blood boil to say that she'd commit all these felonies, but she was going to be let loose. But don't you try this at home, and then sending you to jail. And that was about a month before your jail term began, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I'd already pled guilty and accepted responsibility, and I was basically just waiting to go to prison at that point. And I just was utterly disgusted. I watched it live on television while I was wearing an ankle monitor, out on $100,000 bail. And I sat there with my wife, and I didn't know. I was speechless, you know.
I can imagine, because I was speechless watching it with my wife, and I wasn't under threat of a jail term for a very, very minor charge compared to what Hillary did.
Yeah, I mean, and I couldn't believe it. It'd be one thing if this happened years apart from my case and they, maybe forgot about it or something like that. But it was happening at the exact same time. Yeah. These are the same federal prosecutors, the same FBI, the same people that went after me with the greatest of fervor, destroyed my life, destroyed my family's life, bankrupted us. And they're giving this person, Hillary Clinton, a benefit of the doubt, somebody who's not one of the most corrupt politicians in Washington.
Oh, yeah. Globally.
And somebody like me who's proudly served their country for 11 years and has a stellar military record, just demolished by these people. And I couldn't believe it. I said, people have got to be upset about this. And it's upsetting that the left wants to protect her so much and without even taking a look at the facts. I mean, her and Obama weaponized the Department of Justice against me. They used me as a scapegoat to say, look, we're hard on people that mishandle classified information, unless you're, of course, a politically connected elite that's, the current president at that time says is the most, the best person to be the next president. So it's very upsetting.
Yeah, that was the thing that made me so angry. It was as basically, she's too big to jail, but don't you try this at home. And then using you as the poster child for that. That was just amazing.
I mean, you could go on and on about the tarmac meeting and everything like that. All these things that should have pointed to a corrupt Department of Justice. And, it just everybody just says, well, it's business as usual in D.C. And, thank goodness we have Trump there now, because, I mean, President Trump, he's like a one-man wrecking crew destroying the establishment of corruption that's been in D.C. for so long, and they hate it. Yeah. And I love watching them do it. I mean, it's just... And I love watching them squirm on CNN and all these other fake news networks and say, well, but he's done nearly everything that he promised he was going to do in such short order. I mean, mine is just one of the minor things, my pardon and restoring my good name is just one of the many things that he's done right so far that he promised he was going to do. And they don't know how to respond to it. And, it's sad. Frankly, because he doesn't get the credit he deserves. He's an amazing man. And after speaking to him on the phone, I just reinforced everything I'd already believed about him from watching him.
Well, the further they go down this path, the more they're just destroying themselves, because the American people can see this. They see what the difference between what CNN and others are telling us and the reality of what's going on. But let's talk a little bit about your life now. What are your plans going ahead? You point out they essentially bankrupted you. They made it so that you couldn't get a job. Now you'll be able to get a job with a pardon, but tell us a little bit about your life ahead of you now.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to keep fighting for what I believe is right. I think that this double standard of justice needs to get exposed, and as long as you guys will let me come on your show and talk about it, and I think we need to raise awareness, because we shouldn't let this disappear into the abyss like so many other liberal conspiracies or whatever that have just kind of said, well, it's no big deal. I think we should keep pushing the issue, and I intend to do that.
I agree. Because I think that basically what should happen, don't you agree, Christian, that what should happen is you served a year in jail. I think that was excessive. But I think what should happen is Hillary should go to prison, and then when she gets out, he can pardon her so she can get an honest job somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know if she knows what that word is anymore. But I think, absolutely. I think that Hillary Clinton, Huma Abedin, Cheryl Mills, James Comey, all the other people that were involved in this conspiracy, Loretta Lynch, and probably Obama as well, should be put on trial. And they should be tried and run through the same legal system that I was. Obviously they'll have a lot more funds to throw at legal defense than I did. But I think they should be put through the same ringer, because, whether they get convicted or not, or sent to prison or not, there should be no reason that people in America believe that there's people in this country above the law. It should not exist.
She should be held to, and we said this from the beginning, she should be held to a higher standard, because she was in a much higher office. She had access to much higher classified material that was, as you pointed out, the very definition of confidential is that it isn't going to damage anything with national security if it gets out. And I had a job at one point in time as an intern when I was in engineering, and it didn't take very much investigation for me to get a confidential job classification so I could start that job. It's a very minor thing, something that is classified as confidential, as I pointed out before you came on. When we saw the House memo come out that had been classified as top secret, there was nothing in there. I mean, they overclassify things to the nth degree, and yet Hillary Clinton, with stuff that really did need to be classified, that would really damage our country, was out there carelessly, if not deliberately, putting this stuff out.
Well, and then you see the FBI and Andrew McCabe and Peter Strzok, just this cabal of ensuring that Hillary Clinton never went through any kind of a legal process at all. She gets the special treatment by these guys, the white glove treatment. Why? Why should anybody in this country be treated differently than anybody else? We're all supposed to be protected under the law the same way. We're all supposed to receive equal protection under the constitutional law of this country. And those people, the organizations like the FBI and the DOJ should be above reproach. There should be no insider, well, we're going to do this or we're going to treat this person this way. No, it's shameful. It's shameful that that was at the highest levels.
I agree. And there's another aspect to this, Christian, and that is the fact that, and it's something that I'm especially sensitive to as a journalist, and that is the lack of transparency in our government. Everything, like I mentioned, the memo that was eventually declassified, even though it was top secret, Trump declassified that, and you could see there was nothing in there that needed to be even confidential classification. And we see the government always hiding everything that it does from us under the, well, we can't tell you because it would damage national security. It's just, they're just protecting themselves and hiding all transparency from us and doing it in the name of the national security state. And then we see when it is real national security, they don't care one bit and they won't punish anybody for it. That's the thing that really bothers me.
Nourish a probiotic-friendly environment in your gut with Prebiotic Fiber by InfoWars Life. Help the good bacteria thrive and support overall digestive health with our specially formulated prebiotic fiber, a mixture of clinically studied and organic acacia, fruit, and flax fiber. Prebiotic fiber is soluble fiber that ferments in the gut to help feed good bacteria, which helps you digest food, absorb nutrients, and even support your immune system. InfoWars Life's cutting-edge formula only brings you the highest quality, organic, and clinically studied ingredients. Cheap prebiotic fibers are used up only at the beginning of the colon, but our premium organic acacia fiber is slowly digested by the good bacteria throughout the entire colon for maximum prebiotic effect. Head to InfoWarsLife.com or call 1-888-253-3139.